For me, it's been one that has created a lot of stress resilience, and just my ability to handle harder things has come from more work I put in the gym.
If you can think about your life in terms of a journey, I think that is a good perspective to have with this.
Doing some of those pails and rails and those controlled articular rotations, just like controlling a joint in its full range, that passed the taste test. That is sick. Me and everyone else I've implemented it with, they've not only felt better, but also like now they can isolate a joint and now they can provide that in their own training or at home. It's just a great teaching tool.
Welcome back to the Functional Code. We are excited to bring you guys today another episode. We're going to be talking about the interview that we had with Beau Crisp. Beau is the Ozempic trainer. He's a movement specialist, performance coach, just a guy who is redefining strength from the inside out. It was incredibly fun talking to him, and he had such great insight into the world of GLPs and how he is managing his clients who are using them, and then just a whole host of other information on performance and the ways that you can boost performance, but also maybe having a more foundational aspect of training. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So we're going to just talk the nuts, bolts, and gems of that podcast. So tune in. We're super excited. As always, I am Dr. Addy.
And I am Dr. Jace. Yeah, going over a few things, and yeah, we had some really good conversations. It's always fun talking to like-minded individuals, but to also know their perspective on their specialties and how that goes through our filter. So when we've talked on some of these GLP-1s, some of these training specifics, those two should go together. But even as we go into some of the foundation, he first starts talking about how to make sure you get patients engaged in training and make sure the habits are correct, and so you can start building on those building blocks. Because I think, and I respect what he said in terms of we're trying to make lifelong change, not just like a quick dump of weight and then of course you get off of some of these GLPs and the weight comes back. And so that comes back to some of the stuff that how you address the philosophy of the mind, movement, body, spirit, all that matters so much.
Absolutely. And I love how he uses that as a foundation first, making sure that patients understand, clients for him understand that if you solely rely on the purchasable, right, you're just going to fail long term.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's the word that I'm going to use there, because I do feel patients will put the weight back on if they do not appropriately manage their lifestyle first and build those habits first.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And so a lot of this goes into the emotional, the mental side of the training, and even physical decisions that you find yourself making. I think this is a good input to make sure that if you're struggling, if you're going through these challenging times, whether it's maybe for us waking up in the morning, getting our day engaged earlier on, it's leaning into that stressful, quick moment, knowing that it's okay, that you're still going to be living, and push through just so you can start those habits.
For sure.
From there. So that'd be a really good start.
And so we have a kind of a list of some of the small tidbits of conversations that we had with Beau. And so Doc and I are just going to briefly touch on what we were talking about during that quote. And yeah, we have a few lined up today that I think really pick out who Beau is as a person and just the kinds of strong information that he brings to his clients that we just really love. And I think more people need to understand this when they start working on themselves. The first is,
I think the most important thing is strength conditioning, fitness in general. It's almost like a super fast-paced role play, a day to give yourself a story and a way to decide who you get to be for that 30 to 50 minutes.
Doc, what about that was interesting or helpful in your opinion?
I think there's a lot of variability and a lot of stuff that if you chunk out that 30-minute time segment and knowing that you're going to just only do 30 minutes, it makes it a little easier to be engaged and to just start, I feel like, the whole process thereof. But being fast-paced and being intentional with some of the fitness exercise that you want to complete allows a little bit of an urgency to get in, get it done, and then start your day off right or finish your day off, depending on when you're getting that work in.
Yep.
So I enjoy that in terms of for those that are maybe more on the busier side or maybe don't have the urge starting off, or habits built in to start a 30-minute cycle. But when we're going fast paced with something, that's also going to increase the higher intensity type outputs.
Yeah.
So you also have to make sure that you're prepared body-wise, nutrition-wise, going into it, hydration-wise.
For sure.
Doc, what have you taken from that?
I really like that because I think it also should re-emphasize who or what we want to be training for when we are in the gym.
Yes.
And so I think more people would have more excitement and fun in the gym if they actually had more of a goal other than just lose weight as their goal in the gym.
Yes.
For me, anytime I step in the gym, I'm a world-class golfer. Okay?
I love that.
And so a lot of the training that I choose to do in those 30 minutes are going to be tailored around rotation. It's going to be improving my thoracic mobility. Thing that I know that it's going to improve my swing and my ability to sustain my body on the golf course. Now, there are still some differing goals that I have. I want to put muscle on and I want to look bigger and healthier and those kinds of things, which can sometimes contradict mobility and things like that. So that's where I need to then, continue to think how I go about things in the gym. So maybe I'm putting mass on in this month or 2-3 months, but then I need to still regain mobility and know how to use that. And still, it's just that kind of thought process that I think a lot of people could have a lot more fun doing, which sports is always going to be one that I think is easier for people to fall back on. But hiking, maybe you're training to go on hikes with your family more, or maybe you're training to play sports with your kids, or I don't know. But that, in my opinion, is a far stronger goal and foundation to have than just you're in there because you got to lose weight. And to be honest, some people know that they have to lose weight, but they don't actually want to be there.
Yep.
And so I just feel like this is maybe a more fun, exciting way to continue to think when you're training.
And there's one point that I want to nitpick, I think is very important, and that is like you start off with rotational movement. Everything is like core to extremity. And I was thinking about this and talking to a patient earlier, or yesterday I think it actually was. If you look at your torso like a cylinder, anytime you're doing like sagittal plane movements or just any pushes or pulls, that's very rudimentary in terms of the planes that you're actually working. You add in, like, instead of barbell, add in dumbbells and add in rotation of some of those pushes and pulls, or high to low or low to high with rotation. You're going to start building up that foundation, especially when most movements are core to extremity movements, whether it's running, walking, throwing, any of that. So that's a really solid foundation. If you're going to do anything for 30 minutes, add in any core work with the extremities, you're going to be sitting down.
Love it. So the next quote he brought up, I love this.
So the idea is, and this is like a strength conditioning, but the first essentially 6 months-ish of their training is going to be neurologically based anyways. So a lot of those gains are going to be just like learning movement patterns, learning how to produce force at in ranges of motion. What is a decent squat? It's like a house, right? It's like we're just trying to build this base of which this foundation that then we can start putting weight on top of, and then this one actually grows. So instead of a house that you can't grow, your bone density and those muscles and those tissues, you're just preparing them at in ranges of motion and as many functions as possible, whether that be like a very linear approach, right, up and down or side to side, or maybe we're rotating. Getting them exposed to as much as possible is super important.
That's a solid quote. When I hear that, I started thinking about, okay, what are the prerequisites that your body, tissues, nervous system need to undergo to either complete a movement, complete lifts? So it's making sure that your nervous system has the ability to complete those movements before adding on load. So it makes sense safety-wise, it makes sense build up a foundation long-term, structure-wise. I thought that was incredibly important. There's a lot of stepping stones that you can have onto that specific comment, but yeah, strongly important, even if you're in the middle of a weightlifting cycle, like whether it's you're training for strength, power, any competitions. If you go back to the foundation of the nervous system and how you can increase that neural drive, if you can have that on your page, you're going to be seeing damn good, not only working out wise, but also recovery and life itself too.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. There's not much I think I want to add other than it might also be a nice mindset shift for you that you don't have to start in the gym with weight. Just start with these movements that you're expecting to be doing for either your job or an activity or hobby you like to do. And if you don't have either of them, trust me, there's still ways that you can train proper movements, such as lifting things. And if you know, everyone's got to clean every once in a while. And these are all things that you can just practice movements on without weight. And that itself can be a habit forming relationship you can start with, which is just healthy movements that you can start to practice without any weight. So there's less of a barrier, there's less fear, you don't have to pick up the scary weights yet. And that alone can be a great way to get started. So I really liked what he had said there.
Yeah. And then even to piggyback on that, like take in consideration like the position that you're in for more times throughout your day, work, life, either or. For example, for us or myself specifically, leaning and bending forward, adjusting patients, assessing patients most days on a consistent basis. So you start thinking about, okay, if I'm bending over for longer periods of time or sitting, can I train my back more so than my chest or the tissues on the front side when I'm working the front? So that's when you can start thinking, okay, maybe a 2-to-1 ratio working back versus chest, just to allow support. So when you are bending over, when I'm bending over, my tissues, muscles, nervous system, body is able to go at length and stay there for periods of time and then get out of it, move around however we want. So it's counteracting movements on either 2-to-1 ratios based on certain positions. But again, that goes back to certain specifics on how you can prep your body.
Yeah. And a lot of people aren't training the posterior chain probably as often as they should be. And that's where we've had a lot of people on the podcast talk about that too. That can be a huge change in not only your performance, but even skill work and just becoming better. I definitely have been crazily training my posterior chain ever since I've been hearing about that. And I'm excited to see how that's going to look in 6 months. He talks about mind, movement, meaning the 3 M's. And he mentioned how you handle fatigue in the gym reflects how you handle stress in life. Yes. And I think this one's incredibly important because the gym, I think, for most people, and I've talked about this with patients, they'll bring up to me, something has happened in their life where an injury has now taken them out of the gym. And as much as they want to get back to the gym for their physical health, they're wanting to get back because of their mental health. And they've spoken about that to me so many times. And I want to get them back as soon as possible because I know how healthy it is mental-wise to be in the gym for me.
Yeah, for that, I have a tendency to go, okay, in order to get you back there, it's going to take some time.
Yeah, for sure.
Having that conversation, but taking maybe a different approach of what are certain things that you can do, safely do that you feel confident doing, that are maybe not the gym, but that will also help for like a stress relief, mental health.
Exactly.
That goes back to hiking, or it goes back to maybe it's harder for you to lift heavier weights, maybe pickleball.
Yep.
Or some type of sports aspect. So it gets you moving, but also at the same time, you're not overdoing it and allow your body to heal or recover more or less from that perspective.
Yeah, and it's a good conversation to have. Obviously, these individuals that are trying to get back into the gym quickly with maybe without healing what needs to be healed. Obviously, that's a good, important conversation to have. But I do feel that the gym prepares you for life in such a way that is hard to emulate in other areas, in my opinion. For me, it's been one that has created a lot of stress resilience, and just my ability to handle harder things has come from more work I put in the gym.
Yes. And piggyback off of that, the first thing in my mind, like outside weightlifting, cold plunges.
Yeah.
Stress resilience.
Doing hard things.
Yeah.
Helps 100%. You achieve harder tasks.
Yeah, that goes into the mental and everything else.
And I still need to do more of cold plunging. I still need to.
Well, it's getting cooler.
It is.
It's so exciting.
Yep. Oh, too bad my apartment, I think, heats their pool, so I got to go figure out, go to EOS or something. But this next one, probably one of my favorites that he said. He was talking about just why we obviously want to preserve muscle, including why on GLPs, just building better habits, avoiding muscle loss, and obviously risk for muscle loss, bone loss. But he said, GLPs change your body, but training changes your life. And for me, what he had mentioned, why I think that was important was because, again, too many rely on GLPs as the treatment or cure-all for what is going on for themselves, and they forget that the real task that at hand that GLPs is helping them with is to achieve movement more comfortably, and once the weight is off, you're able to feel better, move better, and now use that momentum to train more consistently, feel better, and eventually just continue to have that as a lifestyle. That is where you're going to achieve what you're looking for, and you maybe don't know that yet. You think what you're looking for is less weight, but really what you're looking for is to have a higher quality of life, do more things, feel better. That's not going to ultimately come from just taking a GLP for a month.
Yeah. If you can think about your life in terms of a journey, I think that is a good perspective to have with this. People always, they have either a number or image in their mind, and once they reach it, that's a finish line, and it just ends right there. Life just doesn't end with you achieving your goal. So you start thinking about, okay, yes, maybe I'll lose weight with this, but what are things I'm able to do that I'm maybe not able to? Am I going to feel this way versus feeling crappy or energy-wise fatigued? There's so many things, but looking at the perspective of time, in order to do the things you want, in order to impress the people that you maybe don't know or your family members or what have you, it's enjoying the life's process. But these habits that we're trying to almost force you into with some of the GLPs, which will accelerate the results, it's almost like a tool that aids into actually what is needing to be done. And what's needing to be done is the change of habits, change of diet, and or physical health.
Love
and
it.
A lot of it comes back to there, but take a long-term approach. What does your life look like in terms of the journey? And this is a nice tool added in to accelerate the results, but it's making sure that you have the foundation so you're able to go long-term instead of you're off it, comes back, and you get in this repetitive cycle.
Well said.
Yeah.
That was awesome said. Yeah. Next, he was mentioning confidence through movement, and so overcoming fear and maybe some psychological wins in training where maybe they're afraid to do a movement or a lift or those kinds of things. And so he said that's where he finds a way to make them win at something and then stack from there.
They've got to earn the movement. So if we're doing like a lateral lunge, for example, can you lateral squat? Can you access this position yet? If you can't, then maybe we do a little side step. It's still a lateral dynamic movement. It's not quite there yet, but it gives them, not to bring them down, but maybe some just awareness of the situation. Hey, we're just not there yet. That's okay. Look at everyone else who is exactly where you're at right now.
And for me, I think when we are facing an obstacle and we can't really get over that hump, how can we cut that obstacle in half or maybe smaller chunks and obviously achieve it in micro steps, which kind of ultimately was what he was saying at this point. And that's what he meant, where instead of doing a full box squat, can they maybe lower it, jump halfway, and then obviously work their confidence up to the full box squat. I think it was the concept that he was talking about, but
for sure.
It's definitely a strong statement using smaller, maybe more achievable goals to then finally reach the major goal. And I think a lot of people could use that if they feel like they've been either not working out or maybe not feeling the gain or the pump as much in the gym, or maybe they're just, I don't know, maybe they've been working on something and they haven't been able to get where they want. It's psychologically tough sometimes when you're not achieving what you think you want to be, and it can hinder you from wanting to do more when you haven't achieved that yet.
Yes, and applicable for some people, whether you've been in a car accident, whether you've had any traumatic incident, like mentally that's some of the stuff that can be a huge barrier. So for example, I know we see personal injury case patients, people that went and undergo car accidents, and there's a mental scared hesitation, a barrier to go into like just even driving itself.
Yeah.
And how can you start that process? So it's breaking down, like Doc said, small little habits, small little wins, and then add those together in chunks and then put everything together in terms of a long-term perspective of how you want to go about getting back to your normal,
Yeah.
if we will.
Ultimately, it's exposure therapy.
Yes.
It's really exposure therapy. And it can be a really powerful way to finally get to doing the things that maybe you have become fearful of, or a lot of people do this. I hear it all the time. It's, yeah, I injured my shoulder, so I don't even do push-ups anymore.
Yeah.
Or my knees kill me, I don't even take the stairs anymore. And it's, nope, we are not having that kind of mindset. It's a very tough mindset to get out of. The second you start giving up or quitting doing certain things, you're going to continue to not going to use the stairs. Man, I'm not even going to use the escalator. I'm not even going to now do this. I'm not even going to go step up one step like that.
It puts you in a box.
Yep.
Or it limits you. And then, yeah, long-term mental mindset to that, it's a slippery slope.
Yep.
Man.
Agreed.
Ugh.
Agreed. He now then brought up just the future and what he sees as the next 5 to 10 years of his profession and maybe what else healthcare could look like. And he talked, the doctor of tomorrow understands diet, exercise, and recovery as medicine, and just really being integrated now. He sees a lot of other providers and PTs and trainers working together to ultimately build the new healthcare model.
The doctor of tomorrow is people who know the foundations of diet, nutrition, exercise. I think when everyone's joining heads, like you guys would know way more in the intricateness of a GLP and like the markers and the neurology and all the stuff behind that. Whereas my brain works more towards like patterns and implementing attention to detail and stuff like that. That's where I think it's going, and that's where I hope it goes because it's needed.
Doc, what do you think of that?
I think this is going to go 20, 30, 50, 300, 500 years. A lot of it's going to come back to the diet, the nutrition, the recovery, like all that stuff, like the basics that we've been talking about ever since, even before we were alive.
Yeah.
A lot of it is true and can stand the test of time. A lot of it is just external factors some of which is hard for us to control, like like pollution,
yeah,
or like that kind of goes into like where you live kind of deal. The social factors as well is going to be a whole different like ballparking game itself that's going to be harder for us to control. And even to a certain extent, like diets, what spray is going on our foods, what is influencing the processing of how we ingest food, or just the whole industry in itself. The exercise recovery, I feel like that's way more in our control, and we have more influence with that. All of it we have at a certain extent, but yeah, I think that's going to be the foundation, and then as you build up from there, and that's where honestly most schools, if you're going to become a doctor, should even start in this, whether it's a dentist, whether it's a foot doctor, like doesn't matter.
Yeah, there still should be some integration involved in the curriculum, knowing that you're going to work with other providers, which is why I love Northwestern, because they did that with us right away. We got to go work with the University of Minnesota medical residents. They also brought in acupuncturists, massage therapists, and we were able to then have structured conversation while we treated patients together. Man, was that super enjoyable right away. Getting to have people of your own experience still learning as we are in school but just different, obviously, occupations. And it was just fun to pick their brain on what they're learning and maybe how they're looking at things. And it just cultured such a fun atmosphere. And it's the only way I want to practice now.
Same.
And I do feel like it's going to be way more effective when we can all work together versus having just our subspecialties and just that referral loop that patients get caught in. And next thing, they haven't even gotten help in the years of referrals that they've been sent to because nobody takes the time to help them and talk to each other.
Time wasted. That's
Agreed.
There's such a disconnect between all this. I think it's getting better based on talking to certain doctors. It's obviously still built into the medical system and the school. So
yeah, I'll still catch some patients in the loop still, and I'll kind of have to bring them out of that and wake them up a little bit. But it's getting better. I agree with you there. I won't deny that. Far from where I want it to be, though.
Yeah.
Now, I know you brought this one up, Doc. You talked about breath work and where in his session does he include it. I believe he spoke about it at the end. He likes to end with it. But he really talked about it as the bridge between training and healing and how it can be helpful for both. but he likes to end on it. He also thinks that it can even help with your gains, just
for sure.
ending breath work. He does it every time he ends with breath work.
I always end with it. So I play around with it, but box breathing is kind of where I started, right? You have, let's say, like a 4 inhale, 4 hold, 4 exhale, 4 hold, etc. So recently, like I've been playing it like 7, 14, 7. And
Okay.
that's been a really difficult thing to practice, but also if we just had an intense training session, they get to go home happy because their body's not on fight mode, right?
Right.
If anything, they finish their session cooled off, their lungs are like filled with air, their oxygen supplies everywhere now. So I try to end with it, and then also on the mobility specific day, the intensity of breathing changes. So now it's expansive breathing. We're breathing intensely. We're getting our rib cage to move. So I try to do that on mobility specific days, which is a little bit more sympathetic, or just like getting your nervous system dialed in. On training days with the weight room and intense stuff like that, I'm just trying to make it as yoga as possible.
Where do you feel breath work should be included before, after, or even in regards outside of training?
Yeah, great question. That's where the main purpose for ending with breath work is like you're ramping up your nervous system during the workout, activity, what have you. You want to down regulate or more exhale breathing as soon as you possibly can, whether it's after a session or after a harder set or a rep scheme. That way you can allow, once your nervous system gets down regulated, sooner than later, it allows for hormones, chemicals that allow for healing to take place and allows for your nervous system body to recover for a hot second, then you can go back into it.
Yep.
So a lot of it is making sure that you can re-regulate your nervous system for the recovery aspect, but also two fronts, using breath work in the beginning of your session to either ramp up to get prepared, so more inhalation versus exhalation type work. And then you add in some mobility with that you're going to be seeing darn good going into the session. So yeah, a lot of it is regulating the nervous system, coming in and out, mentally preparing yourself and optimizing your systems from there.
Love it.
Yeah.
And that regulation we call heart rate variability.
Yeah.
And that's a term that I hope a lot of you start to become very very cognizant of, because when you can regulate your heart rate whenever you want, whether you want to ramp it up, ramp it down, it's incredibly good for your body to be able to do that. It's also one of the markers of longevity. So if you are obviously into longevity and increasing your life and health span, not only living long, but having a good quality of a life, heart rate variability is one thing that you should be tracking. And one way to do that is with Whoop Band, which is really helpful. Takes the guesswork out of it.
Betcha.
Alrighty.
I like this one that he went into next in terms of self-care and philosophy.
Oh yeah.
It makes so much sense. He said, even healers need healing. And I know, especially speaking from my wife's perspective, being a nurse or any physician.
For sure.
We find that most doctors, physicians, they are not the best patients compliance-wise, because they're givers. They're always trying to help others, but they don't necessarily take. Doc, what is your experience with that?
It's called the caretaker's paradox, man. We are good at helping others, and we'll even go out on a limb to help people and possibly even take reserves out of ourself to go that extra effort to help people. And eventually, I think the doctor right away in practice learns this, because eventually they start to get so wore out, and someone has to talk to them about how they need to care less, but do not care more than the patient. And so when I mean care less, it's tough, because when people hear that, they think doctors should care. And we do, man, we really do. But if we cared more than you, then we are already in a losing battle, because we have no control over what you do. Yeah. And if we went to the ends of the earth to try to get you to do something that you don't want to do, we are wasting our own reserves to do that. I think really for us, we just have to take a kind of step back and make sure that, is this something that you want to do? And if you do, what kind of things do we think you need to do to get there? And maybe in our opinion, what's the more efficient way and healthier way to do it. And we'd love nothing more than to guide you along that process.
Yeah, I can't say anything more.
Yeah.
I think you hit the head really well. Even from the perspective, let's say you're not a doctor or physician, but you start noticing like the person that is taking care of you or the doctor you're seeing on a regular basis has some good days, bad days. Even help, not to say like we want any gifts or we want any of that, but I know personally, mentally more so than anything else, it helps when you're supporting your physician, whether it's bringing like a snack for the staff, or just a thank you card, or even just a Google review saying some of the stuff that's has helped you. All of that helps, like, and more or less gives us validation of, okay, we're doing the things that we need to do. But it's also two-front too, like obviously having those conversations. If you're having a negative experience with a physician or doctor, having and being open and willing, saying, okay, I've noticed these things, what's going on, is there anything I can help or do? Because like we're all people at the end of the day, but at the same time, like when physicians, doctors, caretakers giving over and over again, and it takes a toll on not only them, whether they're smiles or not, but also on their home life as well. So I know we know that firsthand, but it's those underlying low-level service things that you guys don't really see too often. It's just supporting each other. It comes back to that.
Absolutely. And we are trying as hard as we absolutely can to help you. And I know it's tough when you aren't seeing the change you're looking for. Trust me, we want it just as much as you. It's not that we're limiting you in any way. We are just doing our best to attack this chasm of healthcare right now. And there are a lot of complex issues right now. And it's getting worse. Our health is plummeting since COVID, and we're asking for help. Guys, do what we tell you to do at home and continue to take care of yourselves. Diet, exercise, mental. It's not just cracking you and doing PT, man. There's a lot more to it, and we hope that you understand that. But this actually rolls right into things that patients struggle with, clients struggle with when we're not achieving what we're achieving, and what our job is. And Beau said this, he goes, sometimes your job is just to care about them that day. Yeah. He goes, you don't have to fix everything every day. Yes. You don't have to try to get them to battle and overcome every time they see you. Sometimes it's just care for them that day, and hopefully they then have a better day next day and they just get over that little slump that they have. But that's another thing I think providers do, is every time they try to absorb your energy like a sponge, because we really feel like we should be taking on everyone else's struggles and problems. And that's, I think, another thing that a lot of providers can have an issue with. Yeah,
a lot of it is just giving light, and a phrase that we always often say is loving on people, caring for people, expressing that, like everything Doc said, giving them hope for that day, but also like being courageous enough to have tough conversations, even if they're having a bad day, in a loving, caring way, and how you go about communicating that. Because I think it's part of the process. It's one of those to where, yes, you can appease and you can be there for them, but at the same time, if they need to hear a tough message, you have to be the one to deliver that, and then maybe in a, not necessarily a joking way, but in a way that can be serious and influential, but be there with them on that whole process.
Yes.
Or part of that process.
100%. Yeah. And then the last one here, which I know you'll love, Doc, he was talking on pails and rails for mobility. And he said, we are teaching the body that end range is safe.
Doing some of those pails and rails and those controlled articular rotations, just like controlling a joint in its full range, that passed the taste test. That is sick. Me and everyone else I've implemented it with, they've not only felt better, but also like now they can isolate a joint, and now they can provide that in their own training or at home. It's just a great teaching tool.
Do you want to explain what he was talking about there?
Yeah, so there's a difference between like when you're training, like exercising, doing any type of weightlifting workouts. It's probably better to understand like weightlifting wise. So for those that are just listening and not watching the video, if you can image yourself doing a bicep curl, and then if you were to bend your elbow or bring your hand, wrist closer to your shoulder, that would be considered short range. You lengthen or straighten your arm completely, that would be known as end range. Now there's a difference between when you train from end or from straight arm to elbow bent. So this consecutively would train and bleed the energy to more of the muscle belly, versus if you're going to go training, contracting, whether it's squeezing isometrics or squeezing your muscles when your arms lengthen or end range, that bleeds the energy into more ligaments, tendons, soft tissue, but also bleeds it into the muscle belly, and also can create what's known as sarcomere in terms of building up the strength and resilience of the muscle belly even at end range. So more or less, there's a difference between concentric, eccentric, or the consistent bending of the elbow or bicep curls versus the purpose of going from short to length, or just squeezing at length and contracting and loading at length. So that's where, if you're able to train at length and be comfortable at length, not only is it going to help for the foundation of your soft tissues, ligaments, tendons, to a certain extent joint capsules as well, but it's also going to help bleed into the muscle belly. And most people don't always go to end range. They stop part of the way through, and then life happens. Eventually they get to that end range to where they don't really train. Injuries usually ensue from there, or wear and tear, tendonitis, tendinosis, stuff like that can then appear from there.
I like the strength at length equals injury resistance.
Ooh, that's a good phrase.
Yeah. Strength at length.
Strength at length, yep.
I liked that he had such a great concept of mobility and protective training as a basis when he's helping his patients, because again, not only are we looking to improve aesthetics and gain mass or lose it, but we also want to protect you and make sure that you are going to overcome any injury, if hopefully never even get one.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it was an awesome podcast. Super excited that we had him on, and yeah, we had a lot of fun. So if you guys want to learn more about that entire pod, please look it up. It was under Beau Crisp, and he can be found at Buried in the Bones podcast if you want to learn more from him as well. And shout out Beau, a lot of fun.
Woo.
So,
shout out Beau.
And guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. Until next time, you guys have a great day.
Share, and subscribe.
Woo! Disclaimer, the content provided in this health podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast is solely at your own risk. The creators and hosts of this podcast are not responsible for any actions or decisions you may take based on the information presented.
Thanks for joining us on The Functional Code. For more evidence-based health insights, subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, your journey to a healthier you begins with understanding the Functional Code. Until next time, stay well, stay informed, and embrace the science of living well.